Welcome back, and joining us on the show now is Deepak Ballani. He's Director General at ISMA. Mr. Ballani, thank you so much for joining us. And even before we get to what the sugar as an industry is anticipating from the government, from the budget for that matter, I do want to understand the maths of sugar completely, because I do understand that ISMA and various other sugar companies that we speak to have been putting forth this proposal of letting the industry export a couple of million tons of sugar perhaps. So what is the calculation? What is the maths that you're working with?
Yeah, hi. So basically, as you know, that in current season, by end of 30th of September, which is the end of the current sugar season, we will have a substantial higher closing stock of around 9 million tons. And considering that the government wants around 3.5 million tons as a safety, 5.5 million tons as a safety net, we still will have around surplus of around 3.6 million tons. And the next year projections looks to be better. What was perceived around 2 months back that the 24-25 production will be substantially lower. But considering that we are getting good monsoon showers across the country, and specifically in the states where we have a lot of sugarcane production, we are hoping that the production will be much better than what was expected a couple of months back. So considering that, I think we will have substantial production for catering to our domestic consumption, for catering to the ethanol program. And even after that, we should have around 1.5–2 million tons to export. So we have requested the government to allow export of around 1.5–2 million tons. And that, if done, will be a big relief for the industry, and also will ensure timely payment and timely realization of the payment to the farmers.
Deepak, until what time do you think it makes sense for the government to actually allow on ground 1.5 to 2 million tons of export?
We are hoping it should come as soon as possible. And I think ISMA will have the next year projections of the sugar production by end of this month. So we will have our first official estimate on 30th of July. And I believe, considering that maybe this month end or early August, we hope that the government will take some decision on this.
Deepak, also coming on the ethanol part of it, because would you say that the government first will look at consumers and then the ethanol diversification, which we do know is slightly lower as compared to last year? Do you see an increase in that, because the government would want to ensure that the projects or the timelines that they have put out in sense of blending should be achieved?
See, government has already announced, after the new government has taken over, they have already announced going forward blending of 20%, which basically results into a requirement of around 988 crore litre. And sugar industry is committed to supply at least 55% of the ethanol. So I think going forward, we are poised to give substantial 55% ethanol. And I think equal amount of sugar could be diverted, and I think we are in a good situation where we will have the closing stock, good closing stock, and a much better than expected predictions.
I am sure you would have a long list of budget expectations, but one thing that comes to my mind, one of course, is the formula that the industry has been putting forth, whether it's about sugar or ethanol pricing would be top of the list. Also, the sugar minimum selling price has been stagnant till 2019. Is that yet another thing that you guys are pushing for?
Yeah, obviously. See, MSP was last revised in 2019. And after that, year on year, the FRP of sugarcane has been increased. The input cost has gone higher. Inflation pressures are there on the mills. I think it is imperative that now that the government has already announced the FRP of next year, and considering the cost of production, which has also gone higher, the government also increases the MSP of the sugar. And in fact, we have requested them to institutionalize this and create a kind of a formula so that whenever there is an increase in FRP, there has to be a corresponding increase in MSP, which basically ensures that the economic health of the industry remains good, and we are also able to pay to the farmers on time. So I believe government will look at this sooner, and if it is done, it will be a big relief for the entire ecosystem.
It sure would be. Deepak, so what is it that you're looking at in sense of top priority apart from these concerns that the industry has been putting forth for some time now? This is the budget time. The finance minister would look at all the sectors. Sugar is one of them as well. So whether it's about GST or various other subsidies that the sector is looking for, what is top two of your mind?
See, basically, we are looking at, so we need to work on enhancing the consumption of ethanol because the capacities are increasing. We also have grain capacities coming, sugar capacities are also increasing. So we're looking at, also we need to also consider the mind that we have to reduce the carbon emissions. We have to work on how we can reduce the greenhouse emissions and achieve the climate goals. So for that, we have requested the government to reduce the GST on flexi fuel and hybrid vehicles from 28% to 5%. A similar kind of incentive has been also given to EVs, and we have seen what it has done to the EV sector, so that total cost of ownership for the consumer goes down, and we will have increased use of such carbon neutral or zero carbon neutral emission vehicles. So that is number one. The second demand is also to have a differential price of E100 and also to reduce the cost of the E100 fuel. And the GST component may be brought from 18 to 5%. And one of the most important proposals which we have given to the government is basically to come out with a national mission on sugarcane, where we are looking at enhancing the productivity of sugarcane farmer in terms of yield improvement. So that, and we have identified around 55 to 60 districts in the country which are water stressed, so that if from the existing schemes, for example, per drop per crop, then we have watershed development, crops residue management. If an allocation of 38,000 crore could be done for this particular component, it would really help the farmer to enhance the sugarcane production, so that we also are looking at around 20% enhance in the production of sugar. So I think these proposals, if could be considered, will not only help the farmers to enhance their income, it will also
made the sugar industry more sweeter, I'm assuming.
Interesting insight out there. Thanks a lot, Mr. Ballani, for joining in with your suggestions and recommendations. Thank you, Manisha, for taking us through with that conversation. With that, we're out of time on this edition of Halftime Report. The news that there has been some recovery for the frontline index. The mid-cap index is not stopping. In fact, it's only gained further from the time we started the show at the high point of trade. So we'll take our break, come back on the other side. We'll have business lunch, take all the market action ahead.